It is 7 o'clock and I will call a meeting to order for the Arlington Water Board. It is January 13th, Monday. First order of business is to any public comments that are not already on the agenda. Now is your time. They're on the Zoom call or in present. Do you have any questions?
I'll just wait till you start discussing.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
All right, we'll keep it to the agenda.
Yep.
All right, first order of business is to approve minutes of the 10/28 meeting and the 11/25 meeting. Matt was absent and, I think we have had, passed the minutes. What's going on there and Jamie. Something.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 28th water meeting as presented.
Second. Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Jamie to approve the minutes of the October 28th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? One absent. Okay, then the minutes of the 11/25 meeting.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the 11/25 meeting as presented.
Second. Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Jamie to approve the minutes of the 11/25 meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the report of the chief operator, including the letter, I guess, the draft letter for the
Draft letter.
ratepayer. So the floor is yours, Josh.
Yep, so we just drafted up a letter for the ratepayers explaining the increase, breaking down that will be going to a backup operator now instead of just a one operator system, having a backup moving forward. So there's an inherent cost with that, also an inherent cost for running the water system and keeping everything up to date, and making advancements on the water system. So basically a synopsis.
I don't see the letter.
It was in your packet.
I did not have a chance to go through my packet.
That's fine. It's up on the screen. I can print out the copy if you'd like to read it over as you sit here. Would you like me to do that?
Oops. Yeah.
Scroll back up on that, Nick.
Okay, this is good because I think that we were never comfortable with not having a backup.
Sure.
That was not a good, and we knew that because of what happened with poor Peter. I
yeah.
mean, so I think it's really important that what we're doing now is going to enhance reliability, and costs are certainly an issue for everybody, but not having any water is like really bad.
Yeah, and with the regulations, as they are now, and they will be stricter in the near future, on a multitude of things. But having somebody that knows how to take samples where they need to be taken, can step right in if something happened to me, or vice versa, for the next person, just to have that accountability for somebody is going to go a long ways.
Why is the letter from Josh instead of from the commissioners?
I think
We
we
asked
specified that. That was specifically something that we specified at the previous
I
meeting.
mean, I certainly
We can
wrote it
we
up,
can
but
change the signature.
you can change who names on the bottom.
Yeah, we can say, and the Arlington Water Commissioners. Right.
I guess, I think it's a good letter. And it says some things that I wouldn't have thought to say, which is understandable, given your background, but I guess, I wonder if we could, put the water commissioners out there somehow too. I don't know what,
We could,
I don't know.
I think we should only because we're the ones that actually vote to raise the rates.
Right.
It's for that
And also,
reason.
we're the ones that just hired him.
Sure.
So I don't know how, I mean, I think this is in your voice, so I think it's a good letter. I guess I would solicit thoughts about how we could, without creating a different piece of paper or any kind of
Yeah.
complications, and whether we could just say, you
You
know,
put
and
in
the
the town
Arlington.
of Arlington Water Board. Is
we can
that-
also put it onto the town of Arlington Water Board letterhead. That's also an option.
For
We can
sure.
Plug that right onto with the logo and all that, and it's
Are you comfortable with that, Josh, having us on? it?
Yeah, that's fine. I wrote
I
it
think,
up.
you wrote, no, we did ask you to do it, and I think it's very good. I just want, I mean, people don't know your name. I
Sure.
just want, I want it to be clear that we're like, our name is underneath you, we're standing behind you, or
Yeah.
something like that. I just-
Yeah, no, that's totally fine with me.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So
I don't necessarily think you need to add off.
like that.
Town Water Board. Town of Arlington Water
Does
Board.
the water letterhead have your names on it?
It currently just says water board, but I can put it on. Yeah, I can all. Edit the letter.
I mean, you could put the names of the water board there, and because another thing is that not everybody knows that
Not
the
everybody
water
knows
board
who the
is the
water
select
board
board, you know?
Yeah.
That's
So-
what I'm getting at.
Yeah. so
Yeah,
it-
I like that.
It
I
may
like
actually
that.
be better just like to have it at the end and just
Yeah.
name everyone out,
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
town and the town of Arlington Water Board.
Try to
names.
limit it to the single page if you have to.
yeah, and then
It's
Town of
just-
Arlington Water Board, colon, and then our names, and then everybody knows
Yeah.
who the water board is. It's the select board, and
Yeah.
we are behind this change.
I'm fine with that. It's a well-written letter.
Yes, I agree.
The other thing would be to, in the first sentence, would it make sense to not just say the town of Arlington, but the town of Arlington select board or water board, water board?
Water board.
Because the town of Arlington, that doesn't mean anything. It
Sure.
was the water
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, town of Arlington Water Board in
Yeah.
that first sentence. is a
Yeah.
good idea.
I think that, I think that's,
And in that same sentence, Nick, if you just go back up to it, I think you could shorten it a little bit by not recently voted.
yes, we voted, we didn't undergo. a vote.
Recently
We
voted.
voted.
That
that's-
just simplifies it a little bit.
It makes very clear what happened. It makes very clear what the process was. This is a frankly really good letter.
Yeah, I think it's good. It brings us in along with you, but it's in your voice. You're speaking to people. So they're gonna know who you are, and I think that's good. They knew many people knew Peter, and they knew Burr, and now they're gonna know you. So,
And I will note, I did ask Josh to write up a little hi, welcome from the water operator in town report as well before the
Good.
budget.
Good.
And that's already it looks as the same tone as this. And it's not exactly talking about this, it's more about his background, but it's a really good, similar style of piece that introduces himself.
Excellent, that's great.
Just for your sake, because there's that one sentence in there, sort of like halfway, you're near the bottom of the first paragraph. I was brought in to ensure the water department for the first time is able to fully comply with all state regulations. So question is, what regulations were you not compliant with before?
And honestly, I think I kind of like the idea of prompting that thought in the ratepayers. Because some of these things, if we're big enough, it would have had to go into that water quality report that everyone gets. But the ratepayers did need to think about what was happening in the last 5 years.
Because
And
I get the report and I'm saying, geez, they didn't, report on this and it was due, they
Yeah.
did something here.
Yeah.
What's going on?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then certainly they've seen that. And this I like this oblique reference to it without saying, look, we failed in this particular way. We failed in this particular way if you're paying attention. We're cleaning it up. And this is what the story we're telling. But yeah, it's kind of very deliberate.
Yeah, and the CCR that goes out there, everybody usually highlights violations. Some of them hard to control, it takes money to fix them, some very controllable. But
And, and some of them we'll see, and the whole South Road project, that is a compliance project more than anything else. It's something we've been talking about forever. So anyone who's observed in the water system, they'll see action on South Road in the next 6 months as well. We'll say, look, we're doing compliance work, look, we're digging.
moving forward on the CCRs, if there's any violations, they will be explained to the consumer why there is that violation, if there is one. But things come up and whatnot, and I think sometimes those CCRs turn into fire starters for most people, but some people obviously take the time to look at them, so it's good to explain why that came about.
I think you're right on top of it, and that's what we've needed for a while.
I would say, with just a quick spell check, we're probably able to, approve it as.
As revised,
And
as
revised.
revised.
Yep.
And so this would go out on some sort of Arlington Water Department letterhead,
With
which
the
he
next
should have
bill, is that
anyway.
correct?
I will make sure that he has the stock town
Okay.
letterhead that's adaptable for whatever needs he needs.
Yeah.
Well, actually, isn't there a different address for the water department?
It's a different PO box.
Yeah, so he should have his own letterhead.
Yeah, I can get it to him with
Create
the
something.
relevant.
All right, so I make a motion to approve the letter, with the revisions discussed.
Second,
Motion made by Cynthia and seconded by Jamie to approve the, letter to the ratepayers as, edited. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And where are we in the billing cycle? I can't remember.
So we're currently reading meters, we're just getting done with this past quarter. So I'm currently reading meters and we'll be sending out bills.
This will be printed, it'll go out with those bills.
Okay, so I'll let you.
Any other questions?
any other highlights that you want?
Any
us
other
to-
highlights?
Yeah,
that
in
you
terms
have?
of-
I know,
Or anything you need help with, or that you think we need to know so far?
I'm putting together a list of things. I keep updating Nick as we go through. But certainly tree cutting around the storage tank. Got a quote for that from Bartlett. They came assess the trees around the water tank. Basically, his thought was it would be roughly like 10 trees getting cut the first time they were to come. And well, for just them, it would be roughly right around like the 10 grand mark. And then he would come assess it every year for free. And then he said probably 1 to 2 trees every 2 or so years after that. To basically get rid of the trees that are rotten or could potentially fall on the storage tank. So he did give me a quote. He did come out and look at that. So that's high on my agenda list. Then, yeah, I'm just making a list of some other stuff I'm seeing. It looks like we're gonna have to spend some money updating outside meters. And I'm gonna put together a total for that. It looks like we won't have to do as many new meters, but maybe a lot of outside readers, and some maintenance, to save a little bit of money there. But there is quite a few of them out there. The last billing cycle, there was 77 non-consumption meters.
You mean 77 meters that showed no use,
Correct. So I'm going through,
and they're still being charged the minimum?
yes. So I'm going through, reading the meters and writing down why, what the problem is, if it's there's no meter reader on the outside. Is there an error reading, which might suggest the meter's buggered up? Or other things. I'm writing that down so I can get a list together of what I exactly need to purchase. in
It's
order
sort of
to
like
do-
you're doing an inventory of the whole
Yes.
system, in a sense.
While I'm going through and doing the readings, yes.
I mean, whatever you're doing, you're essentially doing an evaluation and an inventory
Yes.
wherever you are in the system, the storage tank, the meters, wherever
Yes.
you are.
And we did get the new pressure tanks for the well house because they're over 12, 15 years old and they're rusting. So we did purchase them. We did have a plan to go replace them. Unfortunately, the next day it was going to be below zero when we planned to do that. So I didn't want to shut lines off and start that in case we had an incident where we couldn't get the water back on. So we pushed that off, but we do have the new ones waiting to get put in, and me and Burr
Yeah,
are gonna do that.
you and Burke can do that.
Yeah, Burr could do that. He's gonna show me how to do that because that's out of my realm of
And
expertise.
when they get delivered, does the person, or do you already have them?
We already have them. Yep,
And you can manipulate them?
yep.
You-
So basically, it's gonna be pulling out the old ones, but we have to shut off the south road.
Right,
So the last time I tried to work in Wilcox's schedule and I sent everybody a mailer saying we're gonna shut it off for the day, basically on this date. And so I'll have to wait and reschedule again when we get a little warm spell.
yeah,
And work with Wilcox so we don't mess up their schedule.
right.
And it shouldn't take very long to do it. But things come up sometimes and you
Sure,
never know.
sure.
So
But you got the new thing, so.
we
yeah.
have them and I want to get them in because they're showing signs of rust. And we had one up at Brownlee that blew up inside of our little well containment and it wasn't pretty. So trying to alleviate that from happening.
Yeah,
So yeah, basically at the moment, I'm just going through doing my job and, taking a list of what needs to get updated and trying to prioritize it, basically.
and you're using the truck,
Yes,
and the truck's functioning well?
the truck is functioning. The check engine light just came on while reading meters. And I called Pete, who does most of our service work on the truck.
Okay,
And he said that there was a known issue before, I guess, with the exhaust. And nothing ever got done with it. So now it's out of warranty. So whatever the actual problem is now, we'll have to probably pay for
okay,
that. So he's dropping that off on Thursday morning and he's gonna look at it, see what the code is and, give me a quote and then I'll come back with that and I'll give it to Nick. So. But yeah, it's getting drove around.
And kind of building off this, taking inventories, we did have our meeting with the EPA, technical assistance contractor. It's state, water department, technical assistance contractor last week. And the gist of that meeting is that one of the things that they can step in and help us with is looking at the past capital plans that were built for the department and updating them to make sure that they include and successfully prioritize which projects matter the most for us. So we thought that was a pretty productive meeting that these contractors, or this contractor for zero cost to us, is going to be able to help Josh complete this project with a little bit more technical expertise. With someone who worked for the water regulator, who has done this in many different towns and is going to be able to help us take our existing document and get it updated to the fact for what was done, what wasn't done, what are the new priorities of the system.
okay, so this is that notebook, the notebook of
The-
projects, is that what you're talking about?
I had mentioned it in the fall, and I can't remember when I mentioned it, frankly, off the top of my head.
Because I thought that we already had a list of projects
Yes,
based on that notebook.
we have that. This is building, like, that's gonna take those thoughts as well as our existing, the binder that you've looked at, the capital plan, and help meld those project lists together and help us,
Which project list together? I don't understand.
the ones that Burr and I had come up with, as well as the ones that the engineers previously had listed out, and seeing how those pieces fit together. Helping update that capital plan document and so we can figure out what we need in the long You guys had, when I first mentioned
Prioritize
this,
list.
yeah, when I first mentioned this, we wanted to look at what the projects that need to happen in the future are, some potential future funding sources, and then what rates are necessary to support the project list that absolutely needs to get done. That was what I took from the previous conversation with all of you guys about when I first brought up this, hey, this opportunity is out there, and it's free. What do you think? And there's a very broad scope of things they can do. And that was the sense I took from you guys. We already had that on our table. This will help us flesh out those pieces as well as what we weren't fully considering, which includes some of the things that were in that book.
But I don't understand what these guys are gonna do with that project list. I don't understand.
She's looking at the list that we have, building off of that, looking at the rates we currently charge and giving her perception, basically, moving forward on what we charge, what we take in, projects that we're looking to do, what they're gonna roughly cost, and projecting that out to the future.
Okay, the only way we're gonna do projects is if we get grant funding.
Sure. So she's basically just giving us a synopsis of rates we currently charge, and then a recommendation projected into the future, what we should be charging, to complete the projects we're looking for.
That's not gonna be useful because we're not gonna charge a rate that's enough to do all those projects. That's not
She
happening.
can at least
We're
tell
gonna
us.
have to get funding.
And she knows that there's funding and stuff, and she's very diverse.
That's
Yeah.
that's what would be useful is people identifying sources of funding for different projects because, that's what would be most useful, I think.
But I do want to caution, one thing that did come out of the conversation is there are not a whole lot of different pots of funding. Most of the pots of funding that are available, there are maybe a couple out there that are on edge cases. But because we do not qualify for USDA rural development loans, which are kind of the biggest
And
piece.
why is that?
Because we're too wealthy.
The
Frankly.
town is too wealthy?
Median incomes.
The median income in the town is too high. It is approximately $10,000 above the state median, and you have to be below the state median. So unfortunately, because we are one of the wealthier towns in one of the wealthier areas, in part because of we have it a lot better than many of our peers.
When were those, numbers updated?
I don't know off the top of my head,
Is
but
it census related?
I believe it is, but it's certainly something that I have seen echoed across programs. That's been a consideration because this funding is available not just in water, in many other areas. And many of the Stanfords and the actually truly medianly poorer towns in our area are qualifying. They are getting a bunch of support. They are participating in certain programs. But this is certainly not something we have a whole lot of ability to invest. It is a very facially, we don't qualify, so it's unfortunate that some of these pots of money that are meant to help the poorest of rural areas of America, we do not qualify for. But at least getting a small test on that has been helpful, and any leads on any other programs beyond the known pieces is always a good thing.
Yeah, and she is a free service,
Yeah.
so we took
We'll take
her
the
up on it, and we can see what she has to say.
Instead of much else, not think about it.
Is there a way to get that report that shows that we are quote unquote wealthy?
Yes, I can absolutely find that I believe it's on the USDA website,
Okay.
but I can find that. But yeah, that has been a recurring number that I've seen in many, many different places that I think we're at like $80,000 and the median is something like 72, per household. So,
I thought that we qualified for free and reduced lunch at some point.
and that may be an
Maybe
entirely
that's
different
a
qualifying
subset
criteria.
with the kids or the
Yeah.
something.
These rural development rules are kind of a more modern program that may have only fully really manifested in the last couple of years.
I think just about every kid is free and reduced right now.
Yeah.
Well, I know that, but
That's what I
before
heard.
that was true, I thought, my understanding was that we qualified, but I don't know, I mean,
They may have nothing to do with.
I'm not gonna argue with the census, it's just the extent to which the state and the feds impose more regulations and obligations on us and then refusing to help us to do anything to meet those obligations. Sticks in my craw. If she can do something to help us develop those projects, that's really good. And we will welcome that help, but,
I did hear that you got your 2 hydrants came in.
Yep, we have 2 hydrants that came in and probably won't look to put those in till midsummer. Since we're doing the well house project in May, so probably by midsummer, fallish time, probably put those in. They are in and waiting there.
I assume we're going to have a presentation of the budget, or we all set with that?
We're moving to the budget next, so
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
The only question I have, if we're done with this, I want to move to the budget. The only question I have at this point for Josh is meters. So we talked about, you and I talked about my driveway, and you've discussed a little bit here. Is there are you at a point where you can provide a capital plan long-term for replacement of all meters? And how many do we really need to replace now or fix or whatever? And is that fix in this budget?
So the fix is not in this budget. Long term, I would look to implementing ultrasonic meters. So currently right now we use mechanical meters, more or less. They have an internal function that the water comes in, pushes it, and that is so many gallons every revolution. And then the meter head picks that up. We have a little wire that goes to an outside reader, and that's how we record what people use. So that mechanical function inside eventually with silt and other things just slows down because it's basically some sort of a composite plastic. The ultrasonic meter is a newer meter. It's been around for a little bit now, which most towns are going to. It's basically a hollow chamber. Some of them use a little different function, but basically it reads 100% accuracy through its entire lifespan. As where a mechanical meter, brand new, at very low flows, will not read 100% brand new. They're right around 95, 96%. As it ages, that decreases a little bit. And now it depends how fast it decreases based off of the water composition. But some of our meters, just like I just got done with the Shasbury water system board meeting, we're talking about meters down there because we're in the same boat. We have 20, 30-year-old meters, and it's not cost effective for me to replace those meters with the
the
current.
same kind of meter.
Correct.
Now, the only issue with the ultrasonic is they have a 20-year lifespan. They have a battery inside of them, and they go bad after 20 years. Whereas the mechanical ones, the internal parts wear out within a certain amount of time, so you need to replace that. So they do the battery, so basically, eventually you'll have to replace it again. But
It's a built-in battery.
it's a built-in battery, yeah, built-in lithium battery, yeah. And talking to the rep for Neptune, they make those. We would be able just to put them right in. They're the same dimensions as the other one. They'd fit right in the corner horns, and we could read them right off the touchpad. Now, why a lot of bigger systems are going to the ultrasonics are not only for the accuracy reading, but because the radio reads. So you can get one that has a radio built right into it, and then you can do drive-by readings. But for us, I would recommend just doing the ultrasonics. If you just get the ultrasonic meter, it's about somewhere around $160 to $170. It's like $20 more than it would cost us to buy a brand new mechanical meter from Neptune, which we currently use. And doing a lot of research, they say about 16 years for a mechanical meter is like the threshold of value slash lifespan where you're getting the most for your money before you should replace them. And I'm assuming probably we're over that on a lot of them.
How many accounts on the system?
It's like 422. And with that being said, if you wanted the radio read ones that are built in are at around $330. And the thing with those is if you want to drive by read, you need to buy the software, which is where they kind of get you there. That's anywhere between $8,000 to $11,000 for the software. So it's not super cost effective for that, but for the ultrasonic to put those in, I think is definitely the way everything's moving forward and the way I would recommend implementing them.
Question on the ultrasonics.
Yep.
Is it, you have to shut the water off in the house and then replace
Yep.
that little, okay.
Yep, so you have to shut it off right where it comes in, and take most of the system has corner horns, just like Shasberry. So you'd have to take them out and then put the new one in. You can just turn back the service on.
Would you be shutting it off at the road?
Only if you couldn't shut it off. Usually right when it goes inside the home, it has a shut off. If you couldn't shut that off, you would have to shut it off at the road.
I mean, you have to get access to the house.
Yes,
Mhm.
but we would have to get access to the house if we need to do anything to the meter, as well.
So I did some simple math. If you change all of them, you're looking at about $68,000, which is obviously not something we can do in a year or even 5. If you do it over 10 years, it's about $6,700 a year.
Do
$6,800.
we know, I mean, I'm assuming that all of the meters are at least the 16 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
Because I never heard, I mean, I think I remember Burr replacing some meters, I don't know. But
A few, but not
many, not
many.
any kind of systematic. I guess I think that we need to replace meters that we know are malfunctioning. But I can't launch into any kind of big project like this when we have no idea what the capital plan is or the rates are or anything like that.
Sure.
So I
That's why I asked the
think,
question like
yeah,
you did, because
yeah.
we need to know.
I mean, so I don't know if you can tell when the current meters, the mechanical meters are malfunctioning, or if you're kind of going by the fact that here's this house full of people and there's no usage. I don't know how we would do that.
I mean, when I'm reading them, and usually, I mean, I'll just put it this way, if it's been in there for more than 20 years, it's not reading 100% efficiency.
Guaranteed.
And basically that's
But that's all of them then.
that's yes. And that's our revenue stream.
Right.
And we break it down a little different here, because we're up to that 11,000 mark. And then after that, we charge 4,000.
Yeah.
But it's our main revenue stream. So even if you thought each individual house out of 422 was using an extra 1,000 gallons over that threshold, which probably a lot of people are using under that threshold. But even if you thought about it like that, it would be a lot of money every quarter.
Nick, is there any grant money or possible money for this kind of an upgrade?
There is no magical money for water projects that we can guarantee is out there. The paid for this is exactly what Josh is saying.
Okay.
That what it seems like he's getting at is Josh, is there any reason we cannot rule out, say, I don't want to call it a pilot, but a first tranche of, say, 10 meters on 10 non-working locations that we have a reasonable likelihood are probably reasonably high water users.
Yeah.
That we can buy 10 of these, install them, and that will generate some net revenue that we can then roll
Maybe or
into
maybe not.
future.
You don't know.
We have at least one or two that are
You would believe
that we
that's
are
true. Yes.
extremely
Yes.
reason to believe that
Yes.
that's the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we start in a targeted way, which are some of the non-functioning ones are houses that are off.
Right.
Yeah.
Robin,
Right.
we went over that with Robin, that
Right.
some of these are uninhabited properties or some kind of wonky sitting in probation or probate.
Yeah.
But some of these are not. Some of these are fully occupied houses that have a reasonable likelihood of doing it.
Those are the ones I'd start with first.
Right. So maybe
you could
we
really
get a
tell if you're making.
Yeah.
we get a handful of these and we roll these out and we can see, like, let's look at this. We can get 5, get 10, install them, report back and expand the program and even if this nets back, this nets back, say, so if you net back 1,000 gallons on 1 meter at our rates at about what, $7 bucks a gallon,
Or
a thousand gallons, yeah. So it's netting back, if there are 3/4 that are $1,000 over our existing threshold, that is paying back the difference on that 1 meter replacement. That the margin is not buying the full meter, but it's paying back the difference of replacing versus a mechanical meter. Over the course of 3 years, that's paying for the meter itself.
Right, you don't have to make an argument that we need to replace the meters.
No.
We do. It's a question of how we're gonna pay for it. Because we're just gonna talk about the budget, we're talking about all these other projects, so how are we gonna pay for replacing a certain number of the meters? I like the idea of starting in a targeted way, as both Josh and Nick have said, at the places where we think the meters are not functioning and that there's a chance that there's higher usage. I know that at my house, when we had our house painted and it was pressure washed, that quarter, we were over, you know, so even a regular house, you know, a small household can't get over if you're filling a swimming
Yeah.
pool or you're pressure washing your house or something like that. So I think it would be good to move ahead with the kind of meters that you recommend. They're not too new though, are they? They're not so new that the bugs aren't out of them.
No, they've been
'Cause I don't like
around,
to do too new.
they've at least been around for 6 years, because when I was at Stratton, they put some in when I was there. So they've been around for a while at this point, and every manufacturer now has an ultrasonic offering. And your quickest rate on return is gonna be your industrial users, your schools, which
Right,
those are usually 2-inch meters, so they're gonna cost more than that, $170-ish. But if you wanted to see a quicker return on the investment and actually see what they can provide you with, schools, if there's apartment complexes,
Yeah.
or
Right.
just high users in general, that's who you really want to replace first.
yeah, well, I think that's up to you, you know, to come up with that list. I mean, I think that we have to figure out how it's gonna fit in the budget, if we can afford 5 or whatever we can afford.
When you say the industrial, how much would you think they go for? Like for a Mac or for the school system?
Depends exactly what size line they are. I'm assuming that they're 2-inch, but it depends on the size of the meter.
$50,000?
For a new meter? No, no.
Okay.
No.
I'm just trying to find, because they are probably more apt to, you know, okay, I
Yeah.
gotta replace the meter, here's the X amount. Like, I was just gonna say, I'll give you my $200 to replace mine,
Sure.
you know,
Well,
get the agony over with.
Yeah,
I had a conversation with a respective apartment owner the other day, and that was something that she was saying, look, I brought this up, and she said, yeah, I would rather get this done at the beginning, so I don't have to think about it now, and so that I'm not being surprised by an increase in my bills at some point in the future.
How much?
$500 to $600, I would think, for a 2-inch, give or take.
They will pay for that.
Yeah.
And that's really where the ultrasonic kind of started, was putting them there. And some of them have other benefits, depending on the brand. Some of them will tell you the ambient temperature in the basement, let you know if they're freezing, let you know if they're getting tampered with. They have a lot of other features, and you can even get them where they're not drive-by. They'll send them right to the computer here. And you can get a report every week. You can get a report monthly. You can have them, if they say there's a meter in a house and it's averaging so much water a day and it starts going above that, say there's a leaky toilet or not, it'll send an alert. If we did get the software and everything, it would send an alert to me saying this customer is using higher water, could be a leak, could be something in the house. So if you went the software route, it would really save the consumer money, in the long run, because if you have a leaky toilet for 2 billing cycles, it can really add up.
Do we have, if we get the ultrasonic meters, can we add the software capability and reading and reporting later? Or
Yep.
do you have to get, because I can't, I mean, I want to get the new readers. I'm not paying 12,000 for software.
Yep.
You know,
Well, that's why my suggestion was for the $160 to $70, put those meters in that don't have the internal radio in them. And then afterwards, say we really enjoyed it, everything's working good, save up a little money, let's do the software side of things, then we get the
how are
readers.
we gonna save up any money? That's just a joke.
Sure.
It doesn't sound like
It's a
that's a
joke.
viable option to me.
It's not there. It could be looking, I mean, I definitely, let's do the 5 or 10, the ones that you recommend definitely, and let's find a place for it in the budget, but there's no money for the software or the radios or anything like that.
No, I agree. That's
We have
why,
to repair the lines that come through the batten kill, I mean, there's just.
How many
more
high
things.
capacity ones do you think you would need right now?
I would definitely do the schools. It's.
High school,
Daycare.
elementary,
Yeah.
Happy Days.
Happy Days, I would do Happy Days. Yeah.
Mac,
I would do Mac. There's quite a few apartments that are multiple apartments
Right
in
in
one
the center of
building.
town.
I would do those.
Shires,
Um,
Guys are all separate.
Individual.
yeah, I'd have to take a look at that.
oh, okay.
but
They're
not
individual.
not the,
If they're
not the
one,
elder, not
other
the
than
senior
that,
housing, senior housing,
Aged,
that
yeah,
can't be separate meters.
that's the only one.
The senior housing,
The rest of
there's a,
them are all-
there's a 12-unit senior housing building
Yeah.
that I think is just 1 meter.
I can ask, I'm corresponding with MSK about stuff about that project right now. I can ask them about what the deal is on those.
I mean,
And
it's
there's a
just,
Shires housing down on 313 too. I
313,
don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah. so it's just something to think about, just something I noticed. And I mean, either way,
It's gotta be
coming up,
fixed.
we are gonna have to buy.
Well, we need new
and
meters
stuff.
and there's no point in buying another meter that's gonna
Sure,
wear out faster and not have as good a capability of accuracy. So
Sure.
I'm all in favor of buying the newer meters. It's just a question of how many and how soon. And I
Sure.
would like to start slow with targeted things. I don't know if it's gonna be 5 or 10. I mean, we have to look at the budget.
yeah, and I'm just slowly putting together a list of exactly what I need to just get everything back up to snuff.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
And then after that, we can figure
Makes
that
sense.
out.
How long does it take to put one in?
Not very long, well, it depends if they have a spigot on the inside, you can shut them off before, some
Mine
of them
does, I
don't
don't know
work.
about others.
So
Mine's a 90-degree.
Half hour?
could be 10 minutes less.
Oh,
Yeah, because all it is on each side, you unscrew it, it's got 2 little gaskets. They go in between the meter and the corner horn and you screw it back on, that's it. And you turn the water back on.
And if you're talking about businesses and schools, you're not gonna have a problem with access because they're staffed during the.
Sure, that would be like a summertime thing for the schools when school's on session or an
Yeah.
off period. For MAC, like a holiday when they're
What
not.
about the health center? Would they tend to be using a lot of water?
They don't use a lot of water. I was
I
very surprised. I just read their meter last week and I was very surprised they don't use it much.
I pulled their annual numbers for, one of our recent reports, and yeah, they are really no more than their normal residential customer.
Yep,
so if you do 3 an hour, because I'm trying to think of, time in between, I gotta get from point A to point B. So times, let's say 5, so there's 15 done in a day,
yeah,
times 5 days. That's, you're up to 75.
75, that's 77 that you think are non-functional.
well, and your labor costs are all sunk, so it's zero marginal labor costs. Like,
Well, I'm looking
so,
at the one line item there, I have an operator assistant.
yeah.
well,
I don't understand the purpose of that calculation. That's not the only thing it has to do
oh,
during the day. I don't understand.
but you could do a couple of these, an hour here, an hour there, is what we're
It
saying.
wouldn't take much. to
Right,
get the
that's not the
pilot going.
problem. The problem is buying the
Yeah,
new
it's-
meters.
yeah.
It's not installing
Yeah.
them,
I'm just bringing my thoughts
Yeah.
and to the attention of everybody.
Yes, no, that's good, that's good.
Okay. Do we want to turn to the budget proper?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get into this, Steve, do you have any initial thoughts?
There's some, I'll start at the bottom line, because at least with an income statement, you should have a balance sheet, because last year, presuming where that column where it says actual 24, which is column C, the water department made a profit of about $60,000. Of course, the largest one of that was the lead line reimbursement of about 52,000. I'm going to presume the expense was done in a prior year and you just got the money back. So you should have cash on hand. That's where I'd like to see the balance sheet. Coming back to what you were saying, Josh, geez, I got to spend, 30,000 bucks on this stuff. So that's, also the ARPA. I'm going to presume that miscellaneous revenue line at the top for 103,000. Was that, line 12? 103,465. And I'm going to, I think you had mentioned that some prior one, that was an ARPA.
That's the wastewater study.
Okay.
So yes,
Yeah. Because down below, you only, expenses about, depending, 69 grand. So those funds are funding your bottom line. To the tune of like, $41,000. So if I look at column D, you have expenses of 414,487. And you have revenues of 456. So you have more revenue. Some is due because of rate increases, but also your ARPA money is funding operations. You're getting 103 and only spending 69. So just,
I believe this is the same talking past each other week that we were in the last meeting.
Yeah.
And that's what that column H that
Mhm.
excludes the two one-time revenue
Yeah.
figures
Yeah.
is.
And what
Um,
is the cash on hand? Do we have?
I do not have that number at this time. We're still waiting on the year-end figure finals from
Right.
the treasurer.
but is that column C, is that actual 24? Is that our actual 24?
That's actual 24 up to the final
Okay,
reconcile.
just wanted to,
Um,
um,
But yeah, the gist on this whole, on the wastewater piece is that we know that a piece of that reimbursement, about $30,000, came in like the first week of 25. So we're sitting, so 30,000 of that is in our bank account right now, but wouldn't be reflected in the 24 actuals. And you'll see down at the bottom, I'm sorry for the scrolling. The ARPA wastewater study is the amount less whatever the reimbursement amount was. That delta between the $69,000
And the 100.
and the 103 is the difference between that amount that was received in the first week of this year and the remaining contractual expenses of the wastewater study, supposing that Otter Creek successfully bills out the remainder of the full wastewater study this calendar year. That is a big supposing. Almost all of you are involved in the wastewater project, except for Josh. So we all know how that has gone. I have had this in 2 consecutive budgets now in pieces. So that is why this column H is the one that, for the purposes of the operations of the department, are broken out as the operating revenue less one-time things, less one-time expenses and less one-time revenue. It's meant to be the number that is most successfully explanatory of our current operating cost situation, not the balance sheet. The balance sheet will come out of the audit, as well as be as part of the final numbers for the year. But those numbers, we typically do not have at this stage, for the actual balance sheet. We do need to get there. That's something that we can address as a separate item outside the water board, but we need to do that for the town too.
Could I ask a question, please?
Me too.
So the difference between, in the column H, the difference between, those two figures is the rate increase, correct?
Yes, yes. So just to explain what column H is, it is a sum of these first four lines of the revenues, and it excludes down at the bottom the corresponding lines on expenses, for which is just excluding that wastewater study line. So,
Right,
so these, as you can see, more or less exactly correspond to
The expenses.
That 295 number
right.
of the previous year,
right.
and the 345 with the rate change. So yeah, that is the number that I developed in response to Steve's queries last time.
And Josh, have you had a chance to review this
Yes,
budget?
yeah, Nick sent it to me. Yeah.
And do you have any questions,
Any
revisions, any,
I don't think so. Of
I mean,
course,
you're
I
gonna
just
have a chance to weigh in
barely- yeah.
on future budgets. We'll see how this goes and
Yep.
this is our plan, you know, sometimes during the year things change, so we can make changes and readjustments with votes of the water board, and this is the plan.
Sure.
So, you know, we'll just have to see how it goes. Now, where would we put the meters? Where would the meters go?
I would put them under infrastructure typically.
And what do we have in that line?
About $11,000 on, you can see a actual of.
There it is, there it is.
Yes.
Now,
Infrastructure repair maintenance.
now, those
$11,000.
tanks, are they already paid for? The
The
pressure
Yeah,
tanks,
they
they
already
already paid
purchased
for?
I guess they would have been considered last year's.
Exactly,
Expense
exactly,
line item.
okay. So the 11,000, that would theoretically cover really any repairs anywhere on the system.
Yep.
I think that, what are we thinking? What is it, for the fancy?
I would set a soft budget of $2,000 to $3,000 on this project for this year to give us enough bandwidth
water
for
meter?
unexpected
Okay.
things.
Okay, so I mean, I think we don't have to create something separate. I just wanted to know where
Yeah.
would we be planning to
Yeah.
get that from? And I think that makes sense to get that, and then we can make adjustments in the future,
And
as
And we can
needed.
build into operating costs in the future.
Yeah.
That it's like a couple
Yeah.
$1,000 a year or
What system equipment?
that also sometimes, well, this is a kind of tweener thing. It could be infrastructure, it could be system equipment. Usually that is pumps, system equipment.
It doesn't matter to me. And then there's,
Yeah.
and then we have repair and rental. We have system equipment new, system equipment repair, and system equipment rental.
There's a lot of vagaries among these pieces. And of where do you file an expense like this? That it could
Well,
be
I mean,
infrastructure.
But I
To me,
mean,
that is
infrastructure, because it lasts at least 16, 20 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
Yeah, if
bordering on
if-
capital
if we
equipment,
were-
so. I
if
think
we
that
were to
makes
buy
sense.
a tranche large enough, we would have to list this as a fixed asset.
Right,
But in tranches like this, we typically wouldn't, because our capitalization policy says only expenses like this over X amount.
so obviously we have no actual projects in this budget. When we don't have repairing the lines under the Battenkill, we don't have anything. There's no projects.
Otter Creek's doing an engine or a hydraulic study, that kind of includes the spring, and the whole entire system as a whole, which may lead to further discussion down the road on what's the best option with that.
Yeah, that's the
We should
hydrogeology.
abandon that spring.
Well,
We shouldn't be making preliminary. Let's wait until we see what they say.
yeah, I don't know that for sure, but, I'm certainly thinking of ways to eliminate two lines going underneath the river.
Two lines?
Yeah, there's one that goes through the rec park that goes underneath the river and across, and then there's the one that goes by the bridge. Yeah,
Yeah, you can't eliminate that line because that's how I get my water.
well, you could, we just put a smaller system on the other side.
You mean have a dedicated system for that side of the river?
Yes. Potentially.
That's a really creative solution that has never been brought up before.
I actually don't think it's sufficient because the whole point of a water system is to have backups, and there have been times when the Red Mountain Spring was needed to use to back up this system, and there would probably be times when this system was needed to back up down there.
Sure. So I've been told already that the spring will not maintain the entire system as a backup. So to me, that's not a viable backup.
And we're not even at
It
ten
was a
percent.
supplement, but it was a supplement. I mean, I just know it's been used as a supplement. I mean, I don't
Sure.
know. I mean, I'm not saying it could do the whole system. No, it couldn't. But it was used, well, I mean, this is all beyond where we are
And,
now.
and yes,
Yeah, we'll get a 30% report on this engineering. That is a really good time for some reflection on this. That's a typical normal engineering waypoint. And would be doing a smell test effectively at 30%, just like we did with the wastewater. It's an important milestone in most of these kind of projects. So I think one thing that we can plan on revisiting this at is at that 30% mark when they're moving down in the general direction of where we're going, and have a little bit more information.
If you made that a freestanding system, it would not be linked into the storage tank backup.
correct.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
I don't,
as an observation, if we're quote unquote too rich to get any grants, and this report from Otter Creek says you gotta invest and God forbid over how much money, the only viable option I see, in my opinion, well, two of them. One, you increase the rates to Jesus, or you get your legislator, you call your state senators and the state legislator and say, no, when you do those earmarks, Arlington needs,
that's not how.
And
well, then how does such and such a town get $30 million?
and importantly, other projects, including heavily invested projects, including those in our community, should not get that money. And that's something that this government needs to look out for itself, and this department needs to look out for itself on a level, irrespective of the other happenings in the community.
What I see is that the key thing is to get some of the loan that we have outstanding to purchase the water company and to do the repairs, to get some of that forgiven, turned into a grant, which does happen, and then we have borrowing capacity again. That was my thought.
We can pray for that in 15 years. And hope that for the last couple of years, the loan get converted to a grant. Ex post conversion of these kinds of loans is becoming increasingly rare, although I have heard of them in the systems, although they are much more common in the wastewater side than the water side.
Okay, that could be true.
And also, Josh, it's like 15,000 public water systems that are in the regulated utilities of Vermont. So the competition for even financed loan terms that are preferential is extremely high. What we can do is seek out those preferential loan terms to make sure that if something does come up, we have some preferential borrowing, and can keep rates lower than otherwise. And we can pray for a magical federal bailout.
What about the infrastructure bill? That hasn't come down yet.
It's going to be gutted under the current administration. We expect a large portion of that spending to be pulled out and used as paid for in the federal budget as they stare at some terrifying budget windows in the 10-year cycle.
Okay.
And I'll use all of my 10 years in DCT leaves to say, yeah, that's how this works. I expect a bunch of those bills to be gutted because the previous administration really dragged their feet and required a lot of study on these things, and study is the killer of projects.
Can we go back to the budget, please?
Yes.
Let's end all the other stuff and just focus on the budget and let's get this.
Let's get the budget passed. So any questions on the top part of the budget, as in revenues, as in payroll expenses? Any in that, those two sections? Off the top of your heads.
When I looked it over, it looked fairly straightforward
Moving through administration, vehicle,
from
and system
last year to this
operation.
year, so on and so forth. We're not making decisions on his meters tonight, but I think that's, when that discussion comes, it's more than $2,000. We've got 10 major businesses that are not reading. But the rest of it looks fairly decent to me. Because based on last year's numbers and this year's proposed.
You can always take a motion on the floor to approve as presented.
So I will make the motion to approve the budget as written for fiscal year 2025 for the water department.
Second,
Motion made by Jamie and seconded by Cynthia to approve the budget for 2025 as presented. Is there any further discussion? The only one thing that I would make as a comment is if we're going to do 5, 10, whatever your suggestion is, Josh, for those high flow, high return things we discussed.
Meters.
I would like to at least make sure we have it somewhere that we can at least delve into that, and even if it means another meeting.
Yeah.
But, continue your readings and your analysis of the system, but fairly early in the year, if we can get something going on those, I think that's pretty important.
so in other words, we need to come with needs to come with a proposed order
Correct.
and
Something
identify
we can
list.
fit within that
Yes.
budget.
Yes,
And then my other thought, sitting here looking at the receivables, I know there's some fairly large ones in there, but let's call the budget first. And I have a question and comment on that, but, so if there's no other discussion on the budget, I will call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 and thank you for your work on this day.
Yes, that was very good.
I'm hoping to be able to hand this process off to Josh for next year so that he'll be able to pull us, like, I'll be able to advise him in whatever way I can and help in whatever ways. But as per the mandate of the board, I look forward to this being hopefully my last budget that I'm writing myself. So,
But he'll have the structure that you've got.
I will be doing,
Be creative.
I will hold his hand through next year. This is not rocket science, and
No.
I'm sure that he'll be
Yeah.
able to figure it out next year. But we'll go from start to finish, just like I have the last 4 years. And we'll make it so this department is truly has its cross subsidy from the taxpayers with my time fully unwound, or as well as unwound as it can be by next year. So I have marked the budget final. I will input it into the town report, and we are good to go.
So with regard to the receivables, my question is, how many are on payment plans? How many are successfully staying on the payment plans? Is there any that aren't?
Ultimately, that was the piece that, as part of the transition, I handed off to Josh, and it was pretty clear that the Q4 billing had a really high delinquency rate, particularly when people were already at balances. So the overall balance is up. But that was to be expected in a period where I was not doing receivables and spending all my time doing compliance and transition work. We expect that Josh will be able to.
So in other words, you weren't writing the letters.
I was
and
not
stuff
writing
like
a whole,
that.
I was not doing any notices when we didn't
Right.
know we could send a staff out there to go and shut someone off, and things like that. That was something that, as part of the transition, I pulled back from, but we certainly expect that a handful of the people were good people on this. I did see that their balances did tick down, but I would say the compliance rate on that last quarter was tough.
Well, and some of these are the estates and everything,
No,
you know.
no,
and
the top two.
Yeah.
are-
There's about
10,000 right
There's
there.
about 12
Yeah.
with payment plans. I would say about half of those, it looked like, made some payments, but we did not go and check those last two.
Well, I think that, it would be important the next time we have a meeting to be able to follow up, sending letters, whatever our current criteria is in terms of, 90 days, whatever, sending the letters and checking on the payment plans. And then, the only option we have is to send a letter about shut off. That's the only thing that works.
Right.
So
Josh
it's
has been really
that.
successful with
Gotta
with
keep it
Jasper.
here.
So my opinion on the payment plans is most of the time they don't work. People might pay the first one, then they don't follow through.
Right.
And also with NEMRIC, there's no way to track payment
Accounts
plans.
receivables.
So somebody physically needs to sit there and record when people pay and
Right.
whatnot.
Right.
So that's a separate thing,
I
but,
know, but I mean, like, there's people
It's the
here
only
who are on
practical-
payment plans who owe $5,000.
and
They're
yeah,
never gonna be able to pay that.
yes. And my opinion is we need to start sending 2 pink notices in the mail at so many days for whoever, even if you owe us $10, anything, you get a pink slip saying that you owe this much money. And then my other opinion is that I think we should, I know other towns have done it, I know Shasberry's done it before, but every year you post, if somebody, as long, if you're on a payment plan, we don't post you, but otherwise we
If
post.
you're up to date on your payment.
If you're up to date on your payment plan, we don't post you, but if not, we post this in the town report every year.
Public shaming. I love it.
It's.
Well,
something
Rick,
we-
That
let's
used to
have
be
it
what
stop,
they did
you
with
know.
delinquent taxes.
No,
They
no,
don't
that,
do
and
anymore.
I know, but they used to do it and I wasn't
Yeah.
quite sure why we stopped.
I'm
My,
not sure
my
either.
opinion, it's better to do that and send somebody a 24-hour shut off notice and he come to your house and shut you off. So
And that's really, that's a real disruption in your life. I don't know. I think that historically, the Arlington Water Company was pretty slow. I mean, they had receivables of $50,000 when we bought the company.
Yeah.
So we actually brought it down. We were down to like
We've
30,
done better than
35.
30 years.
And now it's come back up. And I know some people are having hard times, but
it's a lot of money out there right now.
The payment rate this last quarter was really embarrassing.
I wonder why that was.
It was
Christmas?
Christmas, but it was more than previous Christmases. It was a
Right.
very, like, I don't know, the jump from last quarter in particular was a really notable sum. And I don't know how to explain it. It may be just
Maybe
but-
the mails even, because I mean, I've been tracking certain kinds of things and some things are taking 2 weeks. They
Well,
usually take 4 days. you
mail
know,
was
so
also a factor in. when
Sending
you
checks
get
back.
things,
Yeah,
When you get things.
Yeah.
Cause I've noticed ever since they moved all the decision making to Manchester, I've never seen stuff so slow come.
but
to
it
us.
isn't, but it's just, it's slow. Our bills are slow getting out.
Yeah.
And then if somebody actually sends a check, it's slow coming
Slow
back.
coming in, yeah.
So,
I think they basically doubled the time it takes.
well, and it was
Postal
this,
service.
the different White River Junction sorting center or whatever, yeah. So we can't control that, but, I think I can't go quite that far yet, in terms of the sending the pink slip quite that soon.
I mean, you got 13 accounts that are well over $1,000.
I know, I went through
15
the
over
market. 500.
And we got
Right.
41 people over $200. And the pink slips aren't, to me, are not that bad. It's just, it's a reminder saying, hey, maybe you forgot, maybe you didn't get it.
Okay, so in other words, the pink slip is just saying your water bill is overdue,
Past due
that's all it is,
notice.
past due notice.
Yeah.
All right,
And
okay,
I
so
would
just,
say-
so in other words, just start nudging people way
Yeah.
sooner.
And I also heard of a town that started stamping past due on top of the letter saying that people were getting embarrassed because the postmaster was looking at it and people were seeing it. So
On
that
the
also,
envelope.
on the envelope, on the outside, that ended up helping collect revenue as
I
well.
Interesting.
don't know, I think
Interesting.
Arlingtonians are a little tougher than that, I think they're harder to. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, because the problem
$10
is,
gambit. Like,
Yeah.
it pays for itself. Like,
The problem is you get to a point where you try to do these things like publishing this in the town report and whatnot. And if that doesn't work, the alternative is not fun for anybody. So, and unfortunately, in Shasberry, the guy that I replaced, there was a very high balance, so he went through and if people didn't pay within a certain time, 24-hour notice, and he started shutting people off. And I can tell you, people came up with the money awful fast when you don't have water. But it seems to me, not knowing much, but it seems to me like there's not much of a repercussion right now for people, so.
Not until like, and it takes a long time.
So
Takes a long
I
time.
think having that repercussion there,
I think it's a quarterly bill. There's not a lot of repercussion. It just either it gets put aside and never gets paid.
sure,
It's just not on people's minds.
just,
So I would be open to something like that. I guess I just don't want to increase the clerical burden of the postage cost too much, but I'm willing to try something like that.
I would say we should try those avenues first, and if that doesn't work still, then we're gonna have to take a hard stand at some point in the future.
Yeah.
You're the operator, I'm gonna go with your advice.
But I mean, I'm willing to do both in the sense that we have people now that would qualify for shut-off notices.
Yep.
So, you know, I'm willing to go ahead and start sending them please pay the balance due by such and such, or keep your payment plan up to date, or whatever we want to say. And then also sending people, past due notices.
Yeah, I would send the past due notices, and I would state that starting this year, if you are back to, or if you're on a payment plan and you miss even one payment, you will be
You're off
posted.
the pay.
Well, and
It'll
I
be
think,
posted in the town report.
and I think that the other thing that's really important about this, because the whole area, you know, because some people are struggling and everything. When some people don't pay their water bills, it puts the burden on the rest of us. $60,000. Now, that's not a year, that's a one-time thing. If
Sure.
we imagine
Right.
this whole thing got
Right.
paid,
Mhm.
that would be really good.
Well, I look at this big number. I usually just look at the over 120 because that really tells me
Yeah.
the people that don't
Yeah.
pay consistently.
Right.
But even if you come over here to the 60,000 number, if that all got paid today, that's
That's your.
pretty
meeting.
much all brand new meters for the
Right,
town.
right. No, that's what I mean.
That's
So-
what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
It,
we need that
inevitably
money.
for
We need that
projects
money.
and stuff,
Yeah.
we need this money.
Yeah.
And obviously with so many houses, maybe in probate court and stuff, you know, that is what it is. You're gonna have maybe some sort of a balance all the time, but it's limiting it as
Well,
little
and the
as you
thing
can.
that's distressing to me, and I don't know if this goes along with what Nick was saying, is that this meeting and also the previous meeting we were at, there were people on this list that I never saw on this list before. So what's going on with
There's a
that?
lot of new faces.
You know, is that everything is so tight, the whole inflation story? Is that the holidays? What's going
Some of
on?
it's just churn.
I mean, quick money
Paying
right
off
here.
And others are going on and back and forth.
Quick money right here. The 13 that have balances over 1,000 equal about $34,000 of that,
Yep.
60,000.
Yep.
The 15 over 500 add another 10.5. So that's $45,000 in those two.
That's $3/4 of the
Take off
meters.
Exactly.
the $15,000 we're not gonna recover right away. because
Okay, here we
we're
go.
days,
The
and
post
we're-
office.
We're talking like.
Wait, the post office is delinquent.
Yes.
That's very common. It's actually very, very common.
I don't remember that. Huh.
They pop up every like third or fourth quarter because of the
Just the way they, the
It's
way
the
they. do
federal
it.
billing cycle can be
Yeah,
kind of funky.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
all with
because
you,
they're
signing the
year-end
pink
in
slips and getting them on the.
I
on
mean,
notice.
you might view it as harsh, but I
Now,
view it as,
I don't.
it's a
I mean-
necessity.
No, it's-
And,
it is-
I think it's the nice way because I don't want to go shut somebody off. The person that I'm gonna shut off doesn't want me to shut them off. Because at the end of the day, even I have payments, vehicle payments, electricity bill, heating, fuel. I don't always like to spend my money on that. I'd rather spend it on my hobbies, but unfortunately.
But I think the
have
other
to pay
thing
my
is too,
bills.
some of these people don't even know they're delinquent.
Right.
Because you're just not paying attention.
Sure, and we'll
So-
send them a slip.
Yeah, so, and because sometimes people say, oh my God, blah, blah, blah,
Sure.
so,
Yep.
And you can all be rest assured, we did both have a nice conversation with Tim Williams, who this was always his long hobby horse, and we had a great conversation with him about this.
Yeah.
When he checked in with us last week. So,
And I'm not trying to be harsh, and we have people that pay in Shasberry, and I don't really even keep track of it in Shasbury because it's not worth my time.
The payment plan.
Yes, I always tell them, we do every 6 months. I said, you take your bill right now, you divide it by 6. I said, you're gonna need to at least pay that before the next bill, or you're just gonna start accruing interest.
We'll behind.
And you're just gonna keep
Get
being
further
behind.
Yeah.
Cause at first, what we started doing was saying, we won't charge you a penalty if you make a payment plan. That was kind of the incentive to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right.
And like I said,
It just doesn't
80% of the people will make the first payment, will sign the contract and everything else, and they
And
just
they
don't
intend, have
follow
good
through.
intentions, it was just, they just can't
And
make
that's,
it.
that, about between a third and half was our drop off rate with our payment plans.
Yeah.
First
Yeah,
payment,
that
second
doesn't
payment.
surprise me.
So
Road to hell, paid with good
there
intentions.
there were a couple people who really were successful with this, but it was a couple people.
Yeah.
So
And many
I,
of those people who did bring their balances down are back to where they were, after a couple of quarters where they stayed on track, or maybe even no quarters where they stayed on track. But they got to 0 and now they're back to 500.
Yep.
But
What were you gonna say?
so I was just gonna say, I would try those methods to start with and see where that gets us, and then if we need to,
I'm good with that.
Okay, so,
reassess.
so
Gotta
in
do
terms of
something
the
different.
billing, how is this working? Does Josh work with Janet? What's going on? How does that
Yep.
work? Is that how it's gonna work?
Yep.
Cause Nick, you're trying to take a step back.
yeah, it's Josh and Janet can work on this. Janet, he has access to Nemrick, he can pull balances and stuff himself.
Okay.
And he should be able to be mostly self-sufficient on this.
Yeah.
I can give you a hand wherever you need it. I'll be available and,
So what is his guidance? To go ahead and start sending
Mhm.
the reminders when it's past due?
and we,
yeah, I
we've
can
always,
present it to you, to the board, to make sure that's okay
Okay.
before we go through with it, if you would like
Okay.
that.
well, you had previous authorizations to send warning letters and you had previous authorizations to send shut-offs over 500.
Yeah,
So,
so you're
standing
still
policy is
on
that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So
Those
go
are
for
standing
it.
order, good to
Go
go.
for it.
so you're good to go.
And we're standing behind that,
Yep.
that you have the authority to
Yeah.
send
Yep.
past due notice and you can shut off over 500. And you can use your judgment in terms of how that works.
Okay.
Yeah, what the specific
Yeah, I
500
think-
was left up to interpretation. It was never said 500 over 120 or 500 over 90 or over 60 or anything else.
Anybody that has a payment plan or has a payment plan and they're keeping up with it, I think we
And,
until that, if they have missed, they're off.
yeah, and we'll get you up to speed on those. So,
Okay.
excellent. So there's no motion up there. And
It would be crazy for us. The definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Well, and I
right?
think, and we've been taking basically the same approach for
We
like
have.
5,
And
10
it
years.
has
So let's
ebbed
try.
and flowed
That's
a
right.
little bit,
That's right.
but I really,
Right.
if you really want to look at it, it hasn't worked.
yes, you're right. So is there any other business for tonight?
Just want to mention, contacting like, Becca Ballin, our representative. I'm looking at some of her earmarks. Royalton Fire Department, $648,887.25 to build a 2-bay garage for rescue squad vehicles. Town of Bennington, Ben High, $1 million. One of them, put a new water tower in for $1 million. So, hey, if I can get free money from the feds by writing a letter and getting her to come here or calling her, and that helps our cause.
Sure.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
What's her name one more time?
That's a
Excuse me,
boy.
Becca
BALINT. Her full
Josh,
name
I
is
will-
Rebecca, but
I
she
will,
goes by
I
Becca.
will facilitate any of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
CCA.
yeah, well, yeah, she's,
So any other business to be brought before the water board? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Jamie and seconded by Cynthia, we're adjourned.
just
Thank you, Janet.
scheduling note, Glenn, while you're on the phone, we have a special select board meeting for a legal matter, 6:30 PM on Wednesday.
What?
We need a bear quorum. Dan and I talked about this. I put a note on his agenda to try to mention it
It's a
now.
legal matter.
Legal matter, we just need to make a quick decision for a live short-term legal matter.
Well,
Before our next select board meeting. It will not take us more than 15 minutes.
I'll be there right there Wednesday then.
Yep, right here, 6:30.
And
I
then
have another
thanks.
wastewater meeting for any of you coming to the
wastewater
wastewater.
after, correct?
Wastewater, 7.
Yep, wastewater 7. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Night.